Presenter. Presenter.
Chief,
You heard from me. Where is that? Where is that? All right, good evening, everyone. Just puppy on. We'll call to order the Pennsylvania County Fire and Rescue Commission meeting Thursday, November 21st, 2024, 6:30 p.m., 39 Bank Street, Chatham, Virginia. Call the roll, please.
Jimmy Atkins.
Here.
Ben Meeks.
Here.
Alan Casper.
Here.
Ward Rowland. Tim Cassell.
Here.
Brian Shields.
Here.
Jason Lovelace. Here. Kermit King.
Here.
Steve Stallings.
Here.
Coleman Mayhew.
Here.
Bert Sellers.
All right, thank y'all. That's going to move us down to a moment of silence. All right, thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, that brings us down to item 5, any additions or revisions to the agenda. Take a moment, review your agenda, and now's when we'll add any items to that. I'd like to add item 13F, or under 13, this will be 13F. I'd like to add a discussion on the fee schedule for our EMS billing fee schedule. And I would like to add under 13, this would be 13G, I'd like to add a discussion on ESO reporting software state update. All right, is there any other items to be added? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to add these items.
So moved.
All right, got a motion by Alan Casper. Do I hear a second by Vice Chair? Any discussion on the motion? Call the roll, please.
Jimmy Atkins.
Yes.
Ben Meeks.
Yes.
Alan Casper.
Yes.
Ward Rowland. Tim Cassell.
Yes.
Brian Shields.
Yes.
Jason Lovelace. Kermit King.
Yes.
Steve Stallings.
Yes.
Coleman Mayhew.
Yes.
All right, thank y'all. That motion passes. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Jimmy Atkins.
Yes.
Ben Meeks.
Yes.
Alan Casper.
Yes.
Ward Rowland. Tim Cassell. Brian Shields.
Yes.
Jason Lovelace. Kermit King.
Yes.
Steve Stallings.
Yes.
Coleman Mayhew.
Yes. All right, thank y'all. That motion passes. This brings us down to item 7, minutes approval. This will be from the October 2024 minutes. Take a few moments, gentlemen, to review over that. All right, I'll entertain a motion to to approve the minutes or any items that need to be adjusted?
So moved.
All right, got a motion on. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All right, got a second over here. Any discussion on the motion? Call the roll, please.
Jimmy Atkins,
Yes.
Ben Meeks,
Yes.
Alan Casper,
Yes.
Ward Rowland, Tim Cassell,
Yes.
Brian Shields,
Yes.
Jason Lovelace,
Yes.
Kermit King,
Yes.
Steve Stallings,
Yes.
Coleman Mackey.
Yes.
All right, that brings us down to presentations. Daniel, I can come back to y'all if you would. Would that be all right? Just come back? Okay. All right. Do we have anybody signed up under here and other citizens?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So we're going to come back to 8 guys. We got a presentation here in a few minutes. That'll move us down to Fire and Rescue Association reports. Chief Fowler.
You okay to go ahead and address this billing?
Yeah, if you want to, if you want to actually wait, and I'll let you go. I'll let you have some time when we get to the fee schedule.
Okay, I'll delay it to then.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. You have nothing else?
No.
Okay. All right. That brings us down to county staff reports. Director Key.
Just want to remind everyone the ATL funding packets have been delivered. That is for firefighting equipment reimbursements. The 4 for Life funding is for the EMS side. Both of those are from state. The radio preventative maintenance work has been completed. The CIP money, we're still seeing if anybody wanted an ambulance, and then I've got waiting on the 2 replies for the fire apparatus funding for next year. As a reminder, we've got a Skywarn class Thursday, December the 5th, 6 p.m. at the Chatham Community Center. The SCBA flow testing is up and running at this time. They're coming around to the stations, flow testing the air packs. Upcoming training, we've got Firefighter 1, Basic Pump Ops, and Rural Water Supply all scheduled for in the spring. EMS service contracts, they were approved at the board the other night. The PO was sent out today. The SCBA air compressor maintenance, we've got that completed. It's been put in, and the POs were sent out for that also today. Currently, I'm working on the pump apparatus maintenance and testing, working on getting the 3 quotes for that. The SCBA fit test machine has been sent off for calibration. It's due back in a couple weeks. And I've got a couple of the equipment MOUs for the drug boxes and the CSUs still waiting to be turned in. So other than that, that's all, sir.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for Director Key? I do got one question referring to the CIP. So to date, we've had nobody apply for the ambulance funds, correct?
Yes, sir.
And on the fire truck funds, if the 2 agencies that are up next on the rotation decline, it just goes to the next agencies down the line, continues down the line, correct?
Continuing down the line. So I'm wanting it in email to confirm or deny they won't, they do or don't want to,
Okay.
the funds.
So I guess my question on the ambulances, and Chief Fowler, you can chime in here too. If we don't have anybody that puts in for the funding for the ambulances this year, that money's already been allocated for, is that correct? Or is
No,
this would be for next year's?
Yeah, it'd be for next year's.
Next year's, okay, okay. All right, 10-4, thank you, that clarifies. Any other questions for Director Key? All right, that brings us down to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? I don't really think. I do want to say again, thank you to Danville Life Saving Crew. It was a wonderful presentation, and I think they're doing a good service there. And Director might have touched on it. I might have just missed it, but the Fire 2 did conclude, and
Yes.
I think everybody's passed, or everybody's taking it anyway. All right, any other unfinished business before we move to new business? Daniel, y'all good if we catch the presentation at the end? Do that at the end? Okay. We're moving pretty good right now. All right, 13A, that brings us down to Board of Supervisors Communications, and I hope Vic's okay. I haven't heard anything from him. He told me he was coming, and he's not here, so hope everything's all right. So we won't have a board update tonight unless he comes in late. And then the Fire and Rescue Memorial, he was going to update us on, but again, he's not here, so hopefully everything's all right. We'll try to figure out where he's at. So that brings us down to item C, drug box update. That'll be me. Chris put 20 minutes beside that, that's funny.
Sorry.
So as you all know, we have been winding down this road of figuring out drug boxes and stuff like that. And so to bring everybody up to speed for the audience listening at home and the commissioners here, I know Jason's pretty new with us. And then, so the regulations have been out there. Hello, I'm talking louder. The regulations have been out there requiring us to have our own pharmacies in-house. The Office of EMS has just kind of been getting a free pass from the DEA every year and Board of Pharmacy. And finally, it was actually the FDA put in a new law last year, and that law helped kickstart the DEA to say, hey, the buck stops. You got to get everybody compliant. We are the last state in the United States of America that still does the drug box program the way we do. That being said, we put together a committee that involves the Fire and Rescue Association, the Commission, the Pennsylvania County Public Safety Department, and representation from every agency in the county that transports. And that committee has worked their tails off. Casey's worked really hard, done a great job helping us out on a lot of stuff, and everybody on that committee's worked. We've met probably 12 or 14 times now since April, and we're continuing. We're no longer meeting in person. We're now meeting, we're just going to do email updates because we're kind of all in different areas with our licensing phase of it. But we had to sit down and write policy, which you all have already adopted. So everybody's got policy. We had to come up with a system to use that met DEA compliance and met our needs here as a county and to protect our agencies and the individuals in the community. We did that, and I want to thank our Board of Supervisors. They made that purchase possible, over $200,000 between public safety and the volunteers. And then there was construction that had to be done to meet certain room requirements, cameras and walls being built and doors and security systems to lock these drugs up in. You can't just stick them in a closet. And so the agencies themselves have put in thousands. I've been trying to get a full, number, but, we're probably around the $100,000 range right now that the agencies have had to shell out of their pockets to get their rooms updated to where they're at. And then, of course, like I said, the board put out 200 between us and public safety. So we got all of our equipment in. That's been passed out. Everybody, I think, just about has it either mounted in their trucks and up and running or close to that. We also have applied, every agency in Pennsylvania County has applied for their Board of Pharmacy license or in that phase. We have several agencies, including mine, Blair's, Tunstall, Public Safety, and there's others, Callan's, that already have their Board of Pharmacy license. So we are now licensed to carry Schedule 2 through 6 drugs. The next step, once you get that Board of Pharmacy license, is your DEA license. And you have to follow them in this order because you have to have a Board of Pharmacy number in order to put on the DEA license requirements. So several agencies already have their DEA license or in the process. Again, my agency's in the process waiting on our inspection. What we've told, or what our committee has agreed on, is every agency needs to be applying right now. Whatever step you're in, you need to make sure you're applying because it's taken about 8 to 12 weeks for the DEA to get in, and the deadline has been pushed back currently by the state to April 15th. So we have until April 15th, 2025 to have everybody in compliance and running their own drug pharmacies out of their buildings. That being said, 8 to 12 weeks, that's 2.5, 3 months to get inspected. So we don't want to wait too much longer. So I'm going to that brings you up to speed where we are so far. Like I said, I think all of our agencies are doing really well meeting the timeline. Public Safety is actually live. They went live with their drug box program about 2 weeks ago. And I talked to the director last night. He said things are going well. I've talked to Casey. She said they've changed out about 20 medications so far. But all in all, it's going pretty well. We know there's going to be hiccups. We know there's going to have to be a little bit changes in policy from time to time, but that's with anything new. So I'm going to give you the latest update we have from our last meeting. Again, like I just told you, the deadline of transition is now April 15th. Again, they did put in regulation, if any agency has more than one station, you have to let the Board of Pharmacy know so that they can track that. Again, that only pertains to public safety. The rest of us just have one station. All the agencies, we just put a reminder in here, should have their CSR license or at least in the queue for it and be applying for the DEA license. Chris Christensen, which is our rep for Western Virginia EMS, which is the council we all fall under, he's attended every single meeting we've had, whether it was in person or via Zoom. He said, again, reach out to him if you need any kind of help. He'll be glad to. He's a good resource. Once you've completed the CSR license, you have to fill out your DEA application. Again, 10, 8, 12, and nobody really knows the exact date on turnaround for that process, but that's the minimum, is about 6 to 8 is the minimum. We did get another blow that kind of hurt. So the Western Virginia EMS Council, initially we had planned, this was our plan, public safety was going to buy and procure their own drugs, but all the other agencies in the county were going to buy off the state contract through Western Virginia EMS. Western Virginia EMS would get the drugs, and I'm sorry, they would buy the drugs off state contract at a much reduced cost, and then we would buy them for cost from Western Virginia EMS so that we could get smaller quantities, because we have some agencies that run very small call volumes, so we don't need mass quantities of the medications. And when you buy in bulk as a bunch of agencies versus one or two, you get a lot of cheaper price. Anyway, long story short, up until about 2 weeks ago, that was going to be the plan. They were going to meet once a week here somewhere local in Chatham, coming down from the Roanoke office, distribute drugs to the agencies. And then we got told no. The DEA said that's not legal. You can't do that because Western Virginia EMS is not a drug distribution center. They can't just do that. What they can do is they can sell us non-narcotics. So, you know, your normal Zofrans and your normal medications in the box that are not narcotic related, they can sell us those. Your Schedule 6s and stuff like that. To my understanding, that's where we're at right now. They're still trying to work on getting some sort of state contract, and we will have the opportunity to buy from them. We are going to have to buy our own narcotics in-house, though. There's just no question. You got to do that. And I would be prepared, just in case something doesn't come about with this state contract, I would be prepared to go ahead and buy all of the drugs. And we've communicated with the agencies good ways that they can use ESO and break down what drugs they've used over the last year, so they kind of know what kind of quantities to be ordering. As far as the drug boxes themselves, the plan all along has been the drugs would be turned over to the agencies with the drugs inside of them. However, that's up to the hospitals that actually own the drugs inside the boxes. So basically the way it works is when an EMS agency, they will buy the initial box from Western Virginia EMS. Western Virginia actually owns the box. They sell it to you. The hospital that you primarily transport to will stock it with drugs under their DEA license. It goes on your truck, and then you exchange it as you use meds. That's the current program. That's going away. What we've ran into recently is Central, and this was per Casey because they're live now. Central was easy, smooth transition. Hey, the drugs are y'all's, sign here, la-ti-da. She said it was a smooth process. Unfortunately, with Sova, there's still no answer on, right now, the drugs she has are just locked in the pharmacy sitting there, unless that changed today. That was as of 2 days ago. She hasn't gotten any clarification from them if they're going to allow the agencies to take the drugs or not. That could be very detrimental to a lot of Pennsylvania County. A lot of our population is south of 57, and that's where most all of those agencies transport to, is Danville-Sova. So I don't know as a commission what we can do. We can't twist the arm, but we need to make sure we are advocating to our board of supervisors, they need to be talking to Sova. We're a big customer for them, and we need their help. Also, to add to that, wasting stations for the medications right now currently are in the hospitals. Well, some hospitals are electing, once this goes live, hey, you pay for your own wasting stations in your station. Centra has agreed to allow our agencies to waste in their hospitals. That being said, no update again from Sova on that. And then lastly, I heard, and I hope this was just an incorrect comment, but I heard yesterday from an agency, a chief in this room actually, that he tried to take his full sharps containers in to exchange them out or get rid of them, which usually any hospital will let you do, as far as EMS goes, and they refuse to take them. They said they're not going to do that anymore. So, like I said, I don't know who in here or what we can do, but our board of supervisors definitely need to be leaning on them to see what's going on there and see if they can help us out, because if not, we're going to have to shell out a lot more money trying to figure all that out. So I'm going to keep going here. Once you've got your DEA license, you have to get what's called your CSOS license. That application goes online in December the 9th, and there's a link, and I have the link here, and everybody at each agency that's on the committee has the link, so their agency will be able to fill out. It's a bit of confusion on that license, but you have to have it to order your drugs. And again, Chris Christensen or KCC, either one has said you can ask them if you have any questions on the CSOS. Don't ask me, because I don't. Again, the committee has asked to do the updates via email, and like I said, Centra has advised they can do the wasting, let us do the wasting, but still waiting on an answer from Sova. So that is the drug box update. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns from the Fire and Rescue Commission? Where we stand? All right, hearing none, that'll move us down to item 13D, and that's going to be Budget Committee. And it has me listed, but I missed that meeting. I apologize, and so I'm not even going to lie. I don't normally do that, but I completely forgot about it. So Chief Fowler, Director Key, if is there anything you'd like to pass on? I know it's kind of just in the works right now.
We have held one meeting, and we've discussed the budget, looking at different items and trying to project the things, i.e. drug box issues, as well as others that we're going to be facing, to try to put together a proposal for a budget. We have another meeting on Tuesday, and we'll keep working at that, and hopefully we'll bring you back a report. Probably going to be the January meeting. Director Key, you agree?
Yes, sir.
And I think, and thank you, Chief Fowler, I think I seen today where the county posted, the supervisors adopted the procedure, the policy.
Budget calendar.
Yeah, for the county.
Yes, sir.
How they were going to do the budget. And I think, what was it, by February, we have to have everything submitted and finished up?
We've got to have all our department requests by December the 27th.
Okay.
They go for reviews in January.
Okay. All right. Well, like Chief Fowler said, we'll either have an update for this body in December or at latest January. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, on that. The next one's going to bring us down to item E, response coverage. This is Director Key.
Yeah, I include this. This is the past 2 weeks call coverage for fire and rescue. And just wanted everybody to be able to look over it to make sure we're adequate coverage.
I think I will say, compared to last month's, it seems to be some improvement in a couple areas as far as coverage goes. Any questions or comments on the call coverage stats? Everybody's still looking, y'all just let me know if you're good. All right, hearing no questions, we will move on down to item 13F, that's fee schedule. And I'm going to yield my time to Chief Fowler.
We met with the Fire Rescue Association last night, and as you all have heard tonight, there's a lot of concerns about where funds are going to come from to support the drug box program and the system that we're going to be under for transporting and providing care for patients. Pittsylvania County does compassionate billing, and that being said, we haven't changed our rates in 2 years. There was a proposal made last night to be brought back to this body and hopefully be recommended to the Board of Supervisors for consideration. I'll go through it and read you the current rate and what they proposed to go to. Basically, each one of them were requested to go up $100. BLS non-emergency will go from $600, or recommended to go from $600 to $700. BLS emergent, $650 to $750. Advanced life support non-emergency from $775 to $875. Basic life support, advanced life support emergency from $800 to $900. Advanced life support 2 from $1,000 to $1,100. Treatment and non-transport from $400 to $500. A refusal would still stay at $100, and the mileage rate currently is at $18 per loaded mile, and the request was to propose that go to whatever the recommended Medicare rate is at this time. And I know Director Key and myself, as well as Chairman Meeks, have looked all day to find that rate, and evidently it's top secret because we hadn't been able to get that yet. So that'll have to be researched further and put together before the supervisors meet.
Thank you, Chief Fowler. If I could just take a moment, again, I think most of y'all know how this works, but just for educational purposes for the public, the fee schedule has to be set and adopted by the Board of Supervisors. We just make recommendations. Again, the reason for the increase is, guys, the state is going to stop paying for ESO starting mid-next year. It's my next topic. The state is no longer, with the hospitals, we're no longer able to get our drugs through them. We're going to be paying for them out of pocket. So we've got to make some adjustments there to try to recoup some of those costs. Now, we did discuss this in length last night because we all know times are tough. And what people need to remember is this county soft bills. So what I mean by that is, and I'm just going to give you an example, a BLS emergency call, $600. If this goes through, it'll be $700. If I have insurance and I call 911 and Pittsylvania County Public Safety or Blair's Fire Department takes me to the hospital and it's a basic level call, my insurance, I'm going to get billed for $700. Send that to my insurance and they're going to pay it. If there's any left over, the bill gets sent to me. But if I can't pay it, it doesn't go against my credit. Nobody comes after me. Nobody takes me to court. We're just trying to recoup costs and recruit funds where we can to keep these trucks running and keep people on them and keep the equipment on them. I know some people will, what about our fixed income folks? If you have Medicare and Medicaid, there's already agreed upon prices. I want to say it's like 38%. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's 38% of whatever you bill is all you're going to return, and there's nothing we can do about it. So if we send them a bill of $1,000 and they're going to give us $380, that's all you're going to get, and that's just the way it works. And then if somebody doesn't have insurance, it gets considered as self-pay. They get 3 bills. They don't have the money to pay it. It gets wrote off. So again, it's not like we're trying to go after the citizens because we know they're paying a lot right now, like we all are. We're all paying it. But these changes are necessary, and a lot of the counties around us are doing the same thing, and they're adjusting their rates. Because if you pay for insurance, you pay for this coverage. If you have insurance, the coverage is there. And like Medicare and Medicaid, it's funded, our tax dollars pay that. So why not try to recoup some of those funds instead of having to take it back out of the county coffers, out of more taxpayers' pockets? So that's where we're at on our request, and the floor is open for discussion. Don't y'all all talk at one time.
Well, I mean, I think, Ben, that's a modest increase. I think it's very justified. That, as we know, the cost of everything's going up. And most of the things that are going up a lot faster than that. So I think that's a modest, reasonable request to the board to approve.
I agree.
When was the last time we went up on any of this?
2 years ago. So we reviewed it last year, but we didn't recommend any changes. And we actually discussed this earlier in the year, this year. But at the time, I don't even know, I can't remember what month it was. I can't remember if we knew about the drug box issue or we didn't. But either way, we hadn't really got into that from what I remember. And that's why it's back on the plate again tonight, because now we've seen, it's a whole lot of money that had to be put out to meet the requirements for this drug box program.
So, can you look at this as often as you want to, or is it something that's annual, or how does that work?
So we can look at it as often as we want to, but the board has to adopt it. They have to be the ones to approve it. And Chris, they have to advertise it so that if anybody, is that correct? They have to advertise it so the public gets an opportunity to come speak if there's any, body that for or against it. And then they have to adopt it. So we can send whatever recommendations we want. If those gentlemen on the board of supervisors say, hey, I'm not happy with these rates, they have the power to adjust it. It's the authority of the jurisdiction, and they control the jurisdiction. So what we do ask is we need to at least be meeting the minimums. Like for the mileage, we know 2 years ago the mileage was $18. Like Chief Fowler said, we can't find what the new mileage is, and I don't know why. The government makes everything hard. But if that mileage is 19, that means the minimum, the maximum that you can pay, that you can charge is $19 a mile. We need to be meeting that, because that's guaranteed money that's allowable by the government to charge. Whereas, if we're below that, that's money we're losing out on. And especially for the volunteer agencies, then that's less fundraising, and they can focus more on training people and running calls, and they can focus more on, collecting that instead of having to come and continue to beg the county for more increased funding every year. So it's kind of a give and take. But yes, to answer your question, we can review it at any time. And I know a couple of years ago we had let it go for a couple of years and hadn't even looked at it. And the commission, and I'm glad they did, said, hey, we're going to start looking at this once a year just to make sure we're in compliance, and we're, with our surrounding counties, we're pretty much ballpark with them. And so,
Yeah, that was my next question. Are we kind of in line with everybody else, it looks like?
So to my understanding, we're pretty much in line. Some localities of course, are increasing. Some we're looking at it as, let's wait a year and see what the cost ends up being. But you guys know as well as I do, once something goes up, it never comes back down. So we know the costs aren't going to be less next year than they are currently. So we're just trying to be forward thinking and get ahead of this thing. And again, like Chief Fowler said, a conversation that's going to have to be had, and I know is already being talked about with the committee, the financial committee, budget committee. We're going to have to request some funding from the board on buying our meds initially. Calculations that myself and the division chief KCC done, we're looking at about $1,000 to $1,300 per box to stock them. Because there's a couple places you can shop around, but about $1,000 to $1,300 per box to stock them. Now, there's going to be agencies that'll barely use a stocked box probably for a couple months because they have a much smaller call volume. There's also going to be agencies that are going to blow through drugs like it's nothing. because they have so many more calls. So that's something that committee is just gonna have to figure out, what is that number and how do you divide it up fairly? But, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I do have one question you had addressed, that the billing is compassionate billing.
Yes, sir.
Now, I know not everybody uses the same billing agency. Are they any identifiers on the bills for these individuals to know how this bill actually is working, as far as it's not going to be turned over to a collection agency?
Yes, to be honest, I couldn't answer that question. I know sometimes we get calls to the station about it, and I always take time and explain to the individual, that we're just trying to recoup some cost here, and because we have a lot of people on fixed incomes, and whatever the remaining balance is, we'll get billed to them 3 times. After the 3rd time, we use Mars A and B. Mars will send us an email and say, hey, Joe Blow has been sent a bill 3 times, they didn't pay, what do you want to do? You want to keep billing, or you want to write it off? And we write it off. We automatically write off after 3 attempts. Now, to answer your question, I'm not sure if there's any language there, but that's definitely something we could ask for them to put on
So,
there.
I mean, I have a concern that, like you say, fixed incomes and things such as that, an individual is going to be more reluctant to make a call if they feel like that they're going to be obligated to make that payment. And I know we relying on, insurance payments or what have you, but the fact is not everybody has insurance. So.
That's correct.
And that's my only concern. I'm not concerned about the actual fees, but I am concerned about how this is addressed.
Yeah, and that's something we maybe we can ask the association to discuss and see what their agencies are doing, because you're right, several agencies use different billing agencies, and I know the county. Who do y'all use, Chris?
We just switched, what was the name? It is A and B.
Who's that?
A and B.
Mars A and B? Okay, that's who we use. They're a good company. They're out of Paducah, Kentucky. They're a good company. But yeah, that's something we can ask. I would expect most of the counties probably with Mars A and B now, because if they all went, how many agencies is it with the county that bills together? 4?
Four.
4. I know we're on it. Tim, what do y'all want? Mars A and B?
Excuse me, it's Quick Meds.
It's what?
Quick Med.
Quick med.
Oh, well, never mind. Y'all doing something different. So there you go.
Could we get an answer for that for the next meeting then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Most of the time, all it takes, if they call, sometimes a citizen will call the station, like being said. Most of the time, it takes a phone call from the agency, and they'll do away with that bill. If the citizen calls it in, sometimes, like you said, they may not always.
I don't think a lot of them know what they need to do in a situation like that.
Because we've had a few of them to call the station, and they've called the billing company itself, and it goes away.
To answer the question, I know for a fact that ours is set up to where when it's billed 3 times, and it's not anything sent out that it'll be turned over to collections and all of that. And one of the agencies that's AMB actually had a customer come to my station and brought the bills, and it's not a letter with those threatening collections.
Okay. I mean, that's what I'm concerned with. Yeah.
I've seen those two.
We'll double check though, Chief Al, if you can put that, just ask at the association meeting and bring it back. Yes,
And
sir.
I guess it's this body's intention to make sure that's the way it's going.
Correct.
Okay.
Because I just think, like Coleman said, some of you people just don't know, and if they, I get it, it's just peace of mind. Commissioner Casper.
To kind of expand upon that, it might not be a bad idea to have kind of a public service campaign to educate our citizens that that's how things are done. I know because some of the counties around us and cities and so forth, they hard bill. They do pursue collections. And so if they talk to a friend or something that may live in another county, they say, well, I got a thing saying I'm going to collections. It might not be a bad idea if we did some sort of public service campaign in Pennsylvania County to let our citizens know that that's something they don't have to worry about. And I think that would go a long way, because when the public sees, okay, they're going up on fees, they go, oh man, this is costing me so much money, when they don't really realize that we do compassionate billing. So that might be something worthwhile pursuing.
That's a good idea. We could put it out on the county website and the public safety page. Chris, could you make a note of that? And we'll try to put something together. That's a good idea. I'll say this for the ones listening at home and out in the audience and the commissioners. And I've been in Grantland now 16 years, chief of going on my 5th year this upcoming year. And all the bills I've seen at the end of the year, the very lowest line income wise is the self-pay or what has been paid by the citizen. And that's kind of, we don't mind that, right? We're okay with that, because in return, a lot of these citizens, they are still coming out into our fundraisers. They're coming out to supporting our department when we're doing stews and stuff like that. So this is just more so that we capture what's already paid for by the insurance, because the insurance company is the one that are getting people. You're paying for the insurance, or your job, is covering insurance on you, and then it's never getting utilized. And that's what we go after. We bill the insurance to say, hey, we provided a service. You cover this individual. We want what's fair. Like I said, now Medicare, Medicaid, they say, hey, this is what you're getting, go away. And there's nothing we can do about it. And that's all right, because a little bit goes a long ways, as long as we're constantly billing, trying to make up some of these costs. So, any other? Yes, sir.
Ben, on the mileage issue, we don't really know what the up-to-date price is, even if it's unchanged or whatever, but you gave the example of the Medicaid paying 38%, maybe,
Yes.
so on that $1,000, say, bill, that's $380. All right, say that person's loaded transport was 10 miles, and that's, say, another $180. That's turned in with the bill to the Medicaid, if they so desire to pay. That you're going to get the $380, but where's the $180? Does it disappear too? I mean, that's not included.
Yeah, I don't know. So Medicare, Medicaid, the CMS sets the rate. And again, I wish I knew what it was. They set the maximum you can charge. So I assume when it comes to the mileage portion of it, they pay whatever the mileage is. They probably include that in with the percentage of whatever the total bill. So whatever your transport, so let's, ALS 2 costs $800, they're going to pay you 38% of that $800, and then plus whatever the mileage is. Because they look at that as, that's really non-negotiable, because it's.
Yeah, once they reach that limit, though, regardless of whatever it is,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you transported them 30 miles or if it was $1,000 trip, you still going to get the same amount of money.
Right. I'm not sure, honestly, how it works with the mileage.
I was thinking the mileage was a constant fee.
Yeah.
That was, you got that regardless of what the bill was.
Right.
I think the mileage is only constant that's in that bill with Medicaid, Medicare. I think the mileage is a constant.
And I assume that would be the same with just any other insurance regardless. I mean,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, you get higher returns from people that have private insurance, because they don't have an agreed, Medicare and Medicaid is so large, and again, it's the government, so they just say, hey, this is what we're going to pay, and that's it. And so they're able to do that.
And whatever they loaded, Medicaid sets a bill, sets a mileage rates, or what the other insurance company, that's all they're going to pay. It's whatever the Medicaid mileage rate is.
Yeah, they don't,
They
that's
don't
a
go over
maximum.
that.
Well, that's
that
what
we
I
can
was
do.
getting at,
Yeah.
with going up on the mileage rate, was we really gaining that much, or, hey, you're not gonna get but so much regardless?
Well, no, the mileage you're going to get.
Okay.
The mileage you're going to get, but we don't know what their
the
rate
rate
is
is.
right now. That's what we're looking at, is the rate on the mileage. Because whatever the rate is, whatever Medicaid sets for the mileage rate fee what you're gonna get per loaded mile, whether it's Medicaid or private insurance. That's what you're gonna get. And that's a constant throughout the whole insurance. Now, where you're gonna get more money than Medicaid is when you bill private insurance plus the mileage. The mileage rate is what it is. It's just whether you bill private insurance or Medicaid's gonna give you a percentage of your medical part of it and the mileage, where your private insurance is gonna give you a bigger portion plus the same loaded mileage.
Yeah, I just wanted to check, make sure that mileage is a guaranteed thing, because the other, so,
Right.
yeah.
That's a good question, and I don't want to tell you a lie, so I don't know. But I guess the most important part for our citizens listening is whatever your insurance doesn't pay, you're going to get 3 bills and then it's wrote off. We can't hard bill. Nobody in this county can hard bill. Now, I agree with Coleman. It would peace of mind to them, especially elderly folks that may not know, that they need a call. That we do that campaign and try to put it out there and inform the folks. But any other conversation on the agenda item here? I'll entertain a motion to accept the association's recommendations on the current requested increases on the fee schedule to send to the board.
Okay, I'll move that we forward this recommendation to the Board of Supervisors.
Thanks.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, call a roll.
Jimmy Atkins.
Yes.
Ben Meeks.
Yes.
Alan Casper.
Yes.
Ward Rowland. Tim Cassell. Brian Shields.
Yes.
Jason Lovelace. Kermit King.
Yes.
Steve Stallings.
Yes.
Coleman Mayhew.
Yes.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. That motion passes. That brings us down to our last new business item, which is going to be G, ESO. So as you all know, our ESO, which is currently the reporting system that we use for our PPCRs, our pre-hospital patient care reports. Those are very in-depth documents that allow the nurses and doctors to pull from that system to see what we may have done before we got them there. And of course, we give a face-to-face report, but some things sometimes are just missed or they want to go back and look. It also is how we report to the state. So the state can track the data and know, one, that you're reporting correctly, and two, that, it helps them appropriate funds and stuff. And then three, obviously, we use it for in-house data, QA, QI, and also billing. It goes to, our billing companies utilize it. Well, ESO has been funded the last several years by the state of Virginia. Well, if anybody's been following the Office of EMS and the issues they are currently having budget-wise, part of their scaling back and reducing cost this is just another one of them, is they're doing away starting July 1st of 2025. They will be doing away with paying for ESO. We don't know what they're going to roll out yet, but it's going to be a very simple repository system that we'll put basic information in to send to the state, and that's it. So we still have to have some sort of patient care reporting software for our agencies. I know Chief Maracas last time, he said that the last time they priced it at his agency was $3,200 per agency. I don't know what the current, Chris, do you know what the current is? So that's something that we need to start talking about now. I received a letter about an hour ago, about an hour and a half ago, from the Office of EMS, and I will read it to you. It says, on Friday, November 15th, 2024, the Governor's Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board approved a motion to establish an EMS System Initiative Award to assist those eligible nonprofit EMS agencies in obtaining funding for costs associated with establishing a EPCR, Electronic Patient Care Reporting System. This approval is in accordance with the Virginia Emergency Medical Service Regulations, EMS System and Initiative Awards. This grant is to assist nonprofit EMS agencies and localities in offsetting those costs associated with establishing electronic patient care reporting previously funded by the Office of EMS. expires July 1, 2025. This is designated to assist in startup costs and not for long-term coverage. Applicants will utilize the existing eGift portal to access an application to include ineligible attachments, and the applications will open December 1, 2024, and close at 5 p.m. Friday, January 3rd, 2025, and they will announce awards on March 31st. So, just for education purposes, we probably need to have every single agency apply for some assistance through that. It'd be through the same system that you apply for your RSFA grants and stuff like that. But that being said, we're also going to have a backup plan, if that money's not guaranteed. What are we going to do as a county? We need to have continuity between all the agencies. So I don't think it's fair to tell the agency, well, you just go get your own system, and you got 12 different agencies, because it's 12 transporting agencies, including public safety, using 12 different platforms. I think it's a lot more feasible and going to be a lot better for our citizens and our agencies, and the administration that has to lead these agencies to have a compatible system. So I just wanted to bring your topic up to put it in y'all's minds. Obviously, I've talked to Dean about this, and Director knows about all this, and this will be another hot topic for the Budget Committee. And I wanted to read that letter so the agencies know, be preparing. It's going to open up here in 10 days, 9 days. It's going to open up on the eGift portal for where you can apply to get assistance in getting the ESO or whatever system you go with. So, any questions or comments?
So Chairman,
Yes, sir.
so if I understand correctly, I may have missed something, that the state's gonna have their own system to get their information, so we're gonna have to basically run two systems, or will one pull from the other one?
So I don't know how that's going to work. From the initial emails I got, is it said that they were going to have a simplistic repository system that we would put basic information in, and that would be it. Because I initially asked, and I say I'm sure everybody in the state was asking, but that was one of my first thoughts was, how we're going to, they want to know, they want to know when you transport somebody, why and how you did it and everything else. You got to do everything, put the color of the hair. You got to put everything in there, and so that's what I wondered, how they were going to do that. And that's what they said, but they haven't told us anything. We haven't gotten anything on our EMS portals, the super users, and anybody that's a super user should have got that email tonight. They come out, like I said, about an hour and a half ago. So I don't know. And that is going to suck if we have to use two different systems.
Chairman Meeks, I asked a question the other day to our billing company, and it seems that the state is going to be looking for numbers, i.e. number of transports, number of loaded miles, type of call, and number of providers, and the level of those providers as far as certifications, for their numbers to be able to put their stuff together for the Office of EMS funding and training each year. And that's all the information they will be looking for.
Makes sense. Because
Make a recommendation on that, whatever you do, and I agree with you, you don't want to have a bunch of different agencies using different systems, because if you have public safety and people go to different stations, they're going to struggle with those different, software and doing that. You want to make sure that whatever you upload to the state, that it works across the board. I would recommend that whoever looks at that system, you can go in, let them do a presentation on that, and weigh out what's apples for apples. Because you want something that's going to work for you long term, and you want to make sure that you get good support on your software, because you're going to probably need it. Because I know in my profession, I use it all the time, and I need it. So the software, the fees for the maintenance on that, you want to make sure that you get some good, good support on that.
Yep, I appreciate those comments, and that's, I think you're exactly right, and that's why I would like to see this county stay as a county whole with ESO. ESO has been very, at least for my agency, has been very good to work with. You can do a lot with ESO. Pulling reports is simple. I know we had that Medicare audit, and if it hadn't have been for ESO, several of the agencies and the Medicare does, and there'll be more that'll happen to eventually because they just randomly select agencies to audit. And if we didn't have, ESO to pull that software, we'd still be pulling numbers for those folks. So, and they've been very good supporting us. So, I'm going to send that to the budget committee and ask them to do their due diligence on figuring that out, how we're going to tackle that thing. But, it falls back into that asking for more funding. So that's why we're trying to offset some with the fees. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Is this something that could just be a one fee or what have you? I mean, not necessarily each agency?
Yeah, so if we got a county contract, that's what I would like to see.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I was aiming at.
Yeah, I'd like to see, and to touch on that, I know it's been some discussion from some of us on the drug box committee, is if the state doesn't come through, I say the state, if the EMS Council of West Virginia doesn't come through with the contract to buy drugs off of, then we need to research that here ourselves to get a contract that we can buy the drugs off of, because we got 12 transport agencies in this county, and I'm sure we could get others to get on board with us. The more of us that go together and stick together to buy in that bulk, the cheaper price we're going to get. All right, any other comments on the ESO? All right, if not, I'm going to let our visitors tonight come down and do their presentation from East Point Energy, and then we will finish up with matters from the commissioners once they're complete. And this is Ms. Kaiser and
Anthony.
Anthony, yes.
I don't know if
Welcome.
this is working. Hello?
Yeah.
Got to be closer. Yes, so my name is Alicia Kaiser, and I'm with East Point Energy, and I just want to thank you guys for letting us get on your agenda tonight so we can share some basic battery energy storage safety information with you. Our project is not moving forward. However, we are really committed to safety, so we think it's still beneficial to share this information with you. So without further ado, we have Anthony Natale with, what is on my face? FRA, here to share this information with you and presentations on all these screens.
Nice.
So thank you again.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. How are we doing today?
Doing good, sir.
I apologize for my tardiness, a little bit of a ride getting here, but I do appreciate you having us. So folks are citing a lot of these battery storage projects around the country to kind of shore up the grid. But I think they really need to come to our backyard and have that discussion with the fire service about the things that we're concerned about. We're going to manage the safety of the general public and the members operating at the scene. So to me, I've broken it down into 4 things I want to know if I'm sitting there. Tell me about fire. Is it going to leave the site? Is it going to be a problem? Explosions. Am I going to put the members at risk? Plume. Am I going to be evacuating people? And finally, soil. Am I going to contaminate the grounds that we live on and eat off of? Everybody still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sure with my voice you'd probably hear me if I stood in the parking lot. So what we're going to talk about tonight is all of those things. So my end of the business, I spent 25 years working for the utility in New York City. I'm an industrial firefighter. My expertise was electrical fires. I did fires on the transmission system from 69,000 to 500,000 volts. So in 2018, when they started to talk about batteries, they recruited me to get involved with that. So I sit on NFPA 855, and I advocate for the safety of the fire community to make sure that we're writing codes that are going to keep the members safe. So basically, I'd like to move right into the presentation. I'd like to breeze through that, but really hear a lot of questions from you guys. So what we're going to start with is basically failures. What's caused these things, and has there been any correlation? So what we've seen so far is up in New York, they had a couple of back-to-back ones, and then they had one out in Idaho. It was the same manufacturer, and what they realized was it was water intrusion. It didn't start with the batteries. Tesla kind of had the same problem out in California. They realized it was water intrusion, so they started to see, one of the gaps in building these systems. So Tesla actually took the lead, and what they did was they actually made their containers IP66 rated. So if anybody has an iPhone, that's the rating on your iPhone. It you can drop it in water. I don't know if you're like me, but I drop my phone 3 times a day. And basically what happens is with their new containers, they have folks, this is their factory in California, they actually have folks that will go inside these things and they'll deluge these things with 1600 GPM for about 20 minutes looking for leaks. So the industry is getting wiser. So that's the idea tonight, is to come share with you some lessons learned, improvements they're making, and, places we need to go. Fires. When the general public sees fires, most of the time they're horrified. I'd like to think when people in our line of work see fires, we look at it a little differently. Is this like candid camera, the microphone thing? Okay. I think I'm dating myself with the candid camera reference. Anyway, what happens is when most folks see like fires and stuff like that, they're horrified. But I look at it, this is classroom time. This is where we're going to learn and kind of validate what's going on. So basically where we start is, a lot of people, all you hear is non-intervention, don't do anything. You know what I don't like? When somebody comes to my backyard and tells me don't do anything. Give me the information and let me make an informed decision. That's kind of what I want to do tonight. So what they do is when people are building these systems, the different manufacturers are required to do large-scale fire testing. This is considered a unit-level test. They would burn the entire Connex container. Now, the idea is you shouldn't propagate to the adjacent containers. Non-intervention, it's a great concept. But here's why we don't even let folks fight these fires. So we're going to show you what goes on inside. A battery cell, which is the blue thing you see next to the encyclopedia, I have the encyclopedia there as a reference point so you can appreciate the size. So the battery cells are what fail. The battery cells go into what you see in the middle of the screen. That's called a module. It's kind of like a package. So depending on the manufacturer, you could have anywhere from 50 of those cells to 300, okay? So now I close up that module and I stick it inside the container. This is what it looks like. We talk about deep-seated fires. Why are deep-seated fires a problem for us, right? We can't get to them to get them out. Well, this is the concept here. This is why we don't have sprinklers inside these containers, because you're never going to get to the seat of the fire. Now, let me take you through a little bit of what a burn test looks like. So this is a cell with a 70% state of charge. So folks, when somebody says to you state of charge, think of it like fuel, okay? So if you went to a fuel tank on fire, I'm sure you would ask the operator of the facility how much fuel's in there. It's probably going to dictate how long we're going to be there. Well, this one doesn't even have 100% state of charge. 70% state of charge, and what we do is we take it through a series of failures to give you a sense of what game day looks like. So this is called venting. So we punch the cell out, and this is what the cell looks like when it begins to fail. You're going to get a little light smoke condition, and the electrolyte that's being vented, the primary gas is hydrogen. That's the risk indoors for explosion. Now, this is the precursor to thermal runaway. Gets to be a little more aggressive. That's thermal runaway. So the reason we recommend non-intervention, I don't care what agent you have, what appliance you're using, that pressure is probably north of 100 psi. You're never going to get anything inside the cell to interrupt thermal runaway. So this is why we recommend non-intervention. Now, as that thing begins to vent out, it's going to go to a zero state of charge. When all that gas is done, that's the fuel. It's over. There's nothing else you can do to it. So usually when we talk about these type of events, we think of them like a cold. If you had a cold, right, you could take medication for it. When I think of a battery event, I think of it more like a virus. I don't manage that. I manage the symptoms, meaning I let this thing run its course and I just protect my exposures. So let me show you a little more. So there's not a day that the folks in the fire services can go out and do testing and not set something on fire. This is why we don't involve the engineers. They take too long. Our testing always begins with a halogen and gasoline. So what we did was we punched out a cell here. We're going to ignite it. That's a UL-approved shovel. And what we want to do is we want to kind of demonstrate that even submerging the cell you're still going to have such a great deal of pressure that it's still going to burn underwater. Eventually, it's going to vent out and the water could make its way into the cell, but at that point, it's really pretty much over. Would you believe Lowe's wouldn't take that bucket back? So now, just to show you what happens after the fact, we take a halogen to the cell after it's over. Really not much you can do to it. Nothing's coming out of it. And this is what we wait for. We wait for it to vent out and go to what's called a zero state of charge. No more fuel. And that's what it looks like. You'll see it's at 0 voltage. So this is kind of why we recommend non-intervention. Now, when is intervention appropriate? If I have exposure issues, so at the end of the day, if I have a windy day in front of me, I could have some risk with some of the adjacent containers. That's when it's clearly appropriate to get involved. So what does that look like? In Escondido, they had a couple of events in California, and I think the folks in San Diego got a chance to sharpen their skill set, and they got much better at it. So what they realized is, leave the battery container that failed alone and just protect the, do you guys use letters and numbers for exposures? Like when you talk about exposures, like the building on the right and the left, use letters and numbers.
It should be B1, B2.
No, do you use like B, C, D?
B side, B1, B2.
I always ask this because back home, we're the only ones that use numbers. So I says to the chief of department, I says, Chief, can I ask a question? Rest of the United States uses letters. Why do we use numbers? He said, because we can't spell. I said, okay, that's fair. So anyway, what they did here was the Bravo and Delta sides, the containers on the left and right, they just applied a little water there, stopped it, from propagating, and the container burned itself out and it was over. So this is basically what we teach. So we're getting better. We've done a lot of work in the realm of Class C water usage for asset protection and stuff like that, because we wanted to make sure that if we were going to use water in a Class C environment or had the potential to hit something that could be energized, we just wanted to make sure we were keeping the members safe. So we did come up with values. So when we teach these classes, we explain what that looks like. We did testing up to 50,000 volts for this application, but we've done testing up to 345,000 volts. So basically, we have a good sense of what's good, what's bad, and what you can do and still remain safe. Explosions. In 2019, there was an event in Arizona. It was a walk-in container. I think most people, anybody that looked around at like batteries at the time, realized what happened. There were 4 members that got caught up in this, and I think the biggest issue was these were the old types of containers that you were allowed to walk into. They don't make those anymore. Those are taboo. They're prohibited. So now all the containers you see, you open the doors on the outside, you could see the batteries. Well, these folks got to this job, did a size up for 2 hours, which is pretty amazing. Very conservative, but they didn't realize when these batteries fail, they produce a flammable gas. Flammable gas indoors, what does that do for us? Doesn't make for a good day. So we had to learn in the industry, how do we improve from this? So this was the event. This cell failure caused an explosion there, so we had to look at what tools do we have to manage this risk? So there were 2. NFPA 68 and 69. I'll explain both of them, and I'll explain what's good and the shortcomings. So NFPA 69 is a very simple concept. This is what is that's adopted and required in the code today for battery energy storage. What it looks at is if any flammable gas is detected at 10% of the LEL, it starts a fan system and purges it out of the container. The idea is you'll never accumulate enough gas to have an explosion. So that's what's acceptable nowadays. One of the other things that they used to accept was what they call deflagration vents on the roof. Kind of made sense. Vented out through the roof, you didn't see a horizontal pressure wave that would injure the members. And we said, okay, that works pretty good. Then all of a sudden, we had some testing. The vent covers blew off and the doors blew off. We said, how did that happen? So we went back and we asked the engineers, we said, when you design these systems, the size of the panels, where do you believe the explosion will occur? They go at the lower end of the limit. I said, well, what if that happens in the middle of the limit? They go, ugh. Do you remember Lurch on the Addams Family when you get that? Yeah, that wasn't a good answer. So we had to go back and look at that. And here's what we found. This is natural gas, but it's the same thing, whether it's hydrogen or methane. Once you contain it in a building, you're going to have a problem. So this is the lower end of the range. So under these conditions, you basically would have lifted the panels on the roof and the doors would have stayed intact. This is the lower end of the explosive range. But what we saw was the middle of the range. So there's a house in the middle of the screen, dead center, if that was a clock. That's in the middle of the explosive range, which is the most deadly. So both the gas explosions, but very, very different outcomes. So what we realized is NFPA 68 is no longer acceptable in designs because they don't manage the risk. As a matter of fact, one of the other things that the industry is moving to is installing sparkers inside the containers. Something Tesla came up with, very, very simple concept. Simple is great. Basically, if any gas is produced, it ignites it immediately. It never gets to an explosive level. So I was like, it's pretty smart. Plume. Basically, we had two events. The first one is, let's talk about the more recent. This is Escondido, California. So the darker spot, the more brownish spot, that's where the fire occurred, and they had a full evacuation of that area. The purple spot is where they did a shelter in place. You know what that was based upon? These were the readings that the fire department got inside the battery facility. The only thing they read were 2 parts per million of hydrogen cyanide. That comes from burning plastic. Do you know where hydrogen cyanide also comes from? Cigarette smoke. There was nothing there that warranted an evacuation. That was based on emotion and, I guess, politics. It was not based on science. If evacuations of shelter in place is going to occur, it has to occur scientifically. They have to come to us, we're going to do some metering, and then we're going to determine if it's appropriate to seal people in their homes or get them out. I think that they were being very conservative in California. However, I think that they have to trust the fire services to make a call in that case. So one of the issues that we had was actionable levels. How do we say it's time to go? So the third column is basically when we do a large-scale fire test, those are the constituents that we get. The fourth column, it's converted into parts per million, and the fifth column is the CDC IDLH level. That's an actionable level, where it gives levels that it says if you reach this, you need to do something about it. There's only 2 IDLH gases we found when these things burn. One is carbon monoxide, the other is carbon dioxide. You have to stick your head in the container when it's burning to appreciate it at that level. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't want to stand downwind of anything burning, but there's nothing here that I think is worse than any of the other fires we go to. Nothing we've seen yet. This is, you think about it, are we getting people out for house fires, but yet we want to evacuate people for these battery fires? I'm not seeing it right now. Living from a place of telling me during 9/11, no, there's nothing bad in the air, you're going to be fine. I'm very skeptical. So far, everything I've seen, I'm not really seeing anything that's really warranting any type of evacuations, getting people out of their homes. There could be one day, we could learn more, but right now I'm not seeing it. This is Tesla. This is Tesla's fire in Australia versus Home Depot fire in California. You know, Home Depot wants to come and put a Home Depot in your backyard. We don't think twice about it. I'd rather live next to the Tesla site. People ask me a lot, would you live next to this? I go, yeah. I wouldn't live next to a school. I'd live next to a cemetery. The wife doesn't like the cemetery idea. And I wouldn't live next to a Home Depot. There are things that, make sense and don't. That's my opinion. And then finally, last part is soil. What does that look like? So at the end of the day, there were 2 events. There was one in Long Island that they ran the deluge system for 24 hours. The state environmental people came out and tested the soil. They didn't see anything in the soil that would require remediation. This is an open source report that you could look up. That's what the page looks like if you ever want to look it up, New York State Battery Energy Storage Fire Assessment. And then these were the results that they found. There was nothing in the soil, there was nothing in the air that they found was bad. Again, I'm not standing downwind on game day, but they didn't find enough that would require remediation. And then finally, This was the Gateway fire in San Diego a couple of months back in May. Because it was indoors, they used a tremendous amount of water because they were concerned, I guess, about the building collapsing. I think that's what extended the fire. But they I don't know how they did it, but they managed to contain 6 million gallons of water. That's what we were told. EPA Region 9 came in and they sampled the water, and after sampling the water, they allowed them to release the water. They said there's nothing in here that requires remediation. So I think it's nice where we have two different ends of the United States, the regulatory bodies in charge of the environmental aspect of it, evaluating these things and coming to the same conclusion. So I just wanted to be quick, wrap this up, and if you got questions, I want to take them. I don't want to take too long in your meeting. I know Thursday night folks want to get home.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? So do you see these type of facilities, so our county right now is a big topic for data centers.
Yes.
And without getting political, I don't care anything about the political side. This body, the Fire Commission, what we do is make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on how to keep our citizens safe. That's all we do. So do you normally see these pop up closer to those facilities for power, or is that something completely separate?
No, where I usually see most of these sited are pretty close to like a substation, because that's the interconnection into the grid. So that's where they're usually sited. But when you get to like data centers, they start to absorb a lot of power. I think some of the things that we're seeing in the different parts of the United States, some people, because they're a little weary of these things, are creating moratoriums. But the problem is, like a place like New York, they're against like fossil fuels. So your only choice is batteries, and then you have people making moratorium on batteries. But we don't have moratoriums on building. The reason that I need the power is because people are building more commercial and residential properties. So we're actually steering ourselves into a bad direction. If we're going to stop one, we have to stop the other. So I think all of our communities are growing. We just got to find a way to keep up with that.
Any other questions?
Going back to one of your slides,
Oh, sorry, sir.
you showed an unmanned monitor flowing water to protect exposures,
Yeah.
i.e. 1,000 gallons a minute.
Yeah, you could I would say it's probably.
Second one you showed is 2 aerial trucks with the 6 million gallons. I'm assuming that's 2,000 gallons a minute?
I know exactly where you're going. No hydrants, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to haul 6 million gallons 15 miles?
Chief, I got to be honest with you. When I moved out of the city, I live in a rural area, a rural department. I watched the hose go like this at a job, and I go, anybody hit the hydrant? They go, what hydrant? So I know what you're talking about.
And I guess where I'm at, should it be a concern that if these facilities are going to come, that we've got a positive water source at that facility? Should that be something we look at as an ordinance?
So I'm going to tell you what they look at across the United States to manage that risk and good pickup. One is moving the containers farther apart. So that's one. Another one, I've seen people that had concerns basically put tanks on site. And then, depending on where your water source is, sometimes it's very far, sometimes it's very close. Some folks go, I'm just going to do a tank of task force. Other people are like, how far I got to go? That's not realistic. Like, everybody's backyard's a little different. Honestly, what we recommend is you don't need a constant water supply. I just need a little cooling. So in those separate containers, I could see temperature. The only time I'm engaging in this operation is when I got alarms or I'm shooting a facade with a tick and I'm 50% of the vent temperature. So I got triggers that put me into play. But if I got a really windy day, I'm going to flow water until I've got a good amount of cooling. So I always plan for the worst, and I'm with you.
Yeah, I know that was one of the big discussion points when East Point Energy done their presentation to our volunteer agencies that would be primarily responding, the first due, second due area, was the water supply issues. You know, and I know they mentioned putting a tank on site, but, you know, you'd have to have one heck of a tank, and I mean, it's just, that was our biggest concern, was where do you get the water, how do you keep the water there, because we don't have the hydrants in this county to meet a need like that, or a demand like that.
Yeah, we started to see the same thing. I mean, this is not a unique backyard. I would say most of the country is like this.
Yep.
So everybody has those same concerns. It's just you have some variables, and the ways to manage that is, I don't want extension. If I don't want extension, then I need to move stuff a little further back. I need to do a little more fire testing or modeling to figure out what that looks like. What is a windy day going to do? And then if I do need water, what does that look like? So I completely agree with you. I don't want to find out on game day that I don't have enough, and now I'm going to have propagation. So we are already aware of that. So we have, like, we're actually looking at a couple of other things. Hey, have you ever seen the gel-based agents? We're actually even looking at that, where you just coat the containers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of got a finished product, looks like applesauce. You can put a torch on your hand. So a couple of different things that we're looking at. But right now, yeah, your problem is everybody else's problem. So.
Well, and I appreciate your presentation. I just, you know, one thing I was going to say, and he's exactly right. With one container burning on fire, and you're trying to actively cool it, and I believe you said carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide is the off gas byproduct of what's the burning. Unless you've got your head basically in it, you're not going to be getting levels. But that was the flip side of we did the devil's advocate of, what if you don't have the water to keep these cool, and you get that thermal runaway and they start walking down the line of 70, 80 of these boxes. You know, I know this project initially, and again, I know they've withdrawn, not going to pick on them. I appreciate y'all offering this to educate us. But one of our concerns there was initially was, you know, you had houses right across the street. You had a subdivision of 20 plus homes 0.8 miles away. You know, wind direction, and the trees have all been cut over there. Wind direction, you know, and you start putting all 60, 70 containers of CO and carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, then, you know, you got a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So that was kind of where some of our concerns were as far as fire goes. But, you know, I think here, again, it's up to the board on what projects they want to approve and not. We just need to know, how do we make it safe for our citizens?
Sure.
So I appreciate this.
So what ends up happening as far as that goes, we've never seen those plumes, because we've done monitoring at the fence line, we've never seen those plumes leave the site. So far, the separation that you've seen in all the fires that occurred never went to the adjacent containers. We're just being very conservative, saying that's what we would recommend. That's where you're limited in intervention, is like an extremely windy day. Then we would ask you to apply some water intermittently. At the end of the day, there's really not much to do with these other than, you know, just manage those exposures. As far as the gases go, what we tend to see, I think it's a compilation of the characteristics of the gas, that they tend to rise, and the high heat that you see when a cell fails, that you don't see a horizontal expansion across people's lawn. You see more of a vertical rise in dissipation. So what I usually do is I tell people, go online, Google, put in battery energy storage fire, and look at the plumes yourself. They rise up and dissipate. You don't see them expand this way. So that's my biggest concern is, you know, am I going to have to get people out? And if I have to, where am I going to put them? So right now, we haven't seen any of these fires that really warranted anything like that. That much I can say.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
I think I remember you saying that you all pH'd the water in the ground before, and you didn't find anything in it, because since you're talking about the water system here, most of our citizens own wells. So,
Yes.
you know, and if something gets in the well, you know, they're displaced from home for a while.
So, Chief, two things. First, when these cells fail, if you saw the video, that's a gas coming out. Nothing leaches out. The second thing is, we're not going to be putting water on what's burning. The only thing we're going to put water on is possibly the exposure containers. So that would be no different than rainwater hitting them. What we always say is, because you got to play devil's advocate, the chief's not wrong, is, well, what if I have a fire on a rainy day? Okay, so now I have some unintended water intrusion. Then what we would do is then we would test the soil and say, okay, does this require anything? But like I said, in very, very large jobs, they're not seeing that. They're not seeing that. So that data comes from both New York and California.
Because when you put the sale in the Lowe's bucket, it was boiling and boiling over, and I was, that's just one sale.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, like I said, it's nothing, you don't get liquid or anything like that. It's just a gas that comes out. It's not something that's going to go into the ground.
What kind of time frame do we have as far as the data collection for your samples? I mean, because if you put in something like that, we're looking for 10, 20 years, or what have you. And the second question would be the duty cycle as far as the discharge of those batteries, because that typically is what's going to generate your heat to cause failure.
Okay, so the first question is, I'm going to read it back. I just want to make sure I got it right. Is how long is it going to take us to get samples if there was a failure?
Well, no. It's anytime you do any type of estimation of what kind of occurrence you may have, you're going to have a life cycle that you're going through. So how long have these units been in observation to identify what failures you actually have or potential hazards that you have? In other words, if I have a 20-year-old car, I'm going to have more operational expense, leaking oil, stuff like that, versus a new car, right?
Yes.
So what's it going to look like 20 years down the road?
That's the lifespan on these batteries is usually 20 years. They don't exceed 20 years. So what happens is, as you go through the cycling, up, down, they have a system that monitors that cycling, and what it does is it looks at the charge parameters, voltage, temperature, the other things that would suggest problems are occurring and it's getting closer to the end of its useful life. So there's good technology to see what's going on, and then that's what they've done in the industry, where they've seen things starting to fail or not perform correctly, take it out of service, change it out, and replace it. Similar to the brakes on your car. You're starting to see that squeal, it's time for it to be changed.
So we still missed the answer. How much time have you observed these in order to identify what hazards that you have? Have these battery stations been in operation 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
Okay, now I see what you're talking about. I would say they probably started to come online 2017, 2018, so it hasn't been 10 years. So what you started to see was, and I think that's where the problems arose, is that they brought them out to market, not fully understanding everything that could go wrong. So, having said that, where did they learn their biggest lesson? In 2019, where they had an explosion. So the analogy I use is, if you look at when we created cars at the turn of the century, had to be pretty cool to drive down the street in a Model T Ford. Then you got T-boned and you said, it'd be great if they put seatbelts in these. 100 years later, I could drive off a cliff with a Volvo and I have 40 airbags. But it took pretty much 100 years to get there. From 2019 to now, we've closed most of those gaps. We're managing explosion, we're managing heat, we're starting to see different types of thermal management systems. Everything that we see going wrong, we're enacting code and changes. So if you ever follow NFPA, you might see some codes, 10 years, you don't see a change. Every 3 years, we're basically making more changes, making these standards more stringent. We've already told UL, get back to the drawing board, we need to see some more aggressive tests, and basically, we want to see these things actually fail. We're forcing these things into thermal runaway just to see what they look like.
So for me, 6 years is not enough time to really say that we have negated any type of chemical hazards that would leach into the property or anything like that.
nothing, like I said, you don't see anything leach out of the batteries.
Well, what I'm saying is, we haven't seen a failure enough to, or operational enough to really to see what that may take place. I mean, we know what the EPA says about the actual manufacture of those batteries and the hazards that tailings and things such as that comes from that. So, I mean, I couldn't imagine that these here would not have any residuals that we need to be concerned with.
Part of the code is to actually test and look for those things. So right now, UL has created a code to burn these things, figure out what the fires look like, the gases that are in the fire, and is anything coming out of these things. So what you're talking about, every time one of these systems, for it to be approved, has to go through those tests. So those data points are available for every manufacturer.
Well, I mean, I guess my biggest concern is that in the news about the Tesla cars, electric vehicles, or what have you, that they are not allowed to be stored in with regular automobiles after an accident or anything like that because of a potential hazard for those. So, I mean, I was just kind of concerned about that.
It's EVs and stationary storage is kind of like apples and oranges a bit. You're talking about different chemistries. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Have you ever seen like an EV fail? It's a different. If I gave you my keys and I said, Chief, can you put fuel in my car? You'd probably say diesel or gasoline, right? When we talk about lithium ion, nobody asked the next question, what type? The type of chemistry behaves differently. What's in an EV is called NMC, nickel, manganese, cobalt. When those fail, it's violent, arcing, sparking jet fires. When you see what is being used in energy, the battery energy storage, the stationary, it's called LFP, lithium iron phosphate. It's a different type of failure. It produces the gas that you saw in the video. As long as you could manage that risk of an indoor explosion, that's it. So it's apples and oranges. So EV fires are not like these.
Commissioner Casper?
Well, my concerns are kind of like feeding off of Chief Fowler and Mr. Mayhew's comments. Watching the presentation, I see things seem to be in more urban areas. You know, you see, okay, my station is in relative close proximity to where this project was proposed. We're probably 15 miles from the next station. If I dump everything out of my house, I'm going to roll 4,000 gallons of water. That's it. And, you know, and all the other stations coming, we're all kind of in the same ballpark there. No hydrants. It just, that's my biggest concern, is that we're putting these things in rural areas now where you have limited resources. And and we talk about, well, we haven't seen to this point, you know, we haven't seen this hasn't shown itself. I don't want my citizens, my firefighters, to be ground zero. That's my concern.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. So why do they cite these in rural areas? It has nothing to do with rural or densely populated. It's based on loading. So if they're looking at a place to put these in, it's usually because there's a need for the grid in that pocket. So they're not just kind of like picking on you or picking an area. It's probably part of a greater strategic plan. They're looking at probably your community saying it's growing, so they need to augment that. You know, the power supply, that's probably why they're doing that. As far as ground zero, these things are all over the country. We've got a lot of data on what goes on and what this looks like. And the larger training course that we teach, we explain everything that goes on and what this looks like. When you think about the risk to your members, you probably have a greater risk sending them into a basement fire, because there's nothing that they're going to do here except maybe spray a little water over a fence if a container needs to be cooled. So I don't think that, you know, we have that level of risk. I wish I had like a Texas A&M training ground that I could bring people to and do this a little more regularly, that I can get folks comfortable with what this looks like. You know, we go through, we've taken it to a point, Chief, where we've got an 8-step process for conducting a size up, but it doesn't matter what you're at. Tesla, Powen, whatever it is. You go through these steps, you could figure out what you need to do to contain and mitigate, which may be, I'm not gonna do anything. No water. Like I said, most of the United States has that issue. The way we can deal with that is just move the containers apart so that I'm just going to lose one if I have a bad day. I think that risk definitely needs to be addressed based on the availability of your resources. Like I said, most of the United States is exactly like this. So I agree with the both of you.
I guess you said it too, and I'm kind of concerned. I mean, I'm kind of confused. It may be misinformation, but I'm under the impression the area in which this battery storage is to be placed, we already running our generators backwards at the dam to use up over source that what we already have. I mean, I can't really see where we have that demand based off of the information I've received for the batteries. That's what I'm saying. The batteries, once you sit there and charge, if you don't have a demand, that's just going to sit there. It's not going. You're not going to have a cycle, but.
So what happens is, I personally have not done the load study in your area. I'm speaking very generally. When they cite these projects, they have to be approved by your grid operator. And if your grid operator is approving them, these are the people that run in the grid in your state, they usually 3 years, 4 years. It's usually an analysis that takes years. So they didn't kind of wake up one day and go, yeah, you know what, I think we need this. There is a lot that went into this. How long would you say?
Yeah, from the time you submit, and it's called an interconnection application, it can be up to 3 years before it's approved.
Yeah.
Because they have to do such an extensive study on the grid to see how it interconnects, if there needs to be upgrades, et cetera, et cetera.
So think about this. What ends up happening is, in your backyard, you have a couple of problems. You lose a generating station, you lose, you have an overload somewhere. The battery serve as a contingency, no different than like a water tank in the middle of your town. The problem is, just like your water tank, it's going to run out. But it's going to give you 4 hours of gap time to figure out how to get the lights back. You know, power's like your health. You don't appreciate it until it's gone. These things are like having a generator in your backyard. I don't think they're horrible. Do they belong everywhere? No. I don't think they should be on people's house. I don't think they should be, you know, next to people's houses like I live in the city. You know, I think we got to find the right places that make sense for everybody's community. But if they're putting it here, it's probably because the load dictates it needs to go here because it sees your growth. You don't want to think about putting it in when you're at the max. You want to think about putting it in before you get to the max, if that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense, but I mean, I just know the area. That's why I was just, you know, if I thought we was going to put one in, I would think you may be going to do it closer to the southern end of the county than you would the northern end, but as far as growth, but yeah.
I can elaborate on just a little bit on that. So, it's a grid, and the grid services Virginia, Maryland, and some of Pennsylvania, and this is a distribution project, so it does stay more locally, but it's not going to just be in Hurt, Virginia. You know, it will circulate around to wherever the load is more peak and try to interject energy into that area. So, like you're saying, it doesn't stay just in the immediate area, but it does serve the immediate area. If power was to go out, then, you know, wherever that lack of power is, it goes to that area. So just as you said, if the power would go down, it could serve, it's about 750 homes per megawatt, and I can't remember how many megawatts this is, but, you know, times, I don't know offhand but it's 750 houses roughly per megawatt can be supplied energy for 4 hours.
The electrical system's kind of like a plumbing system. You could open valves and route power, but having it closer is more reliable for your system.
So I know our county right now is going through the process of updating the county ordinance, the county code. It was Board of Supervisors Tuesday met. I was here for it. They were here for hours, and that was a hot topic. And it's been delayed till, I believe, January. I guess my question, Director Keed, if you know, and if you don't, could we get an answer? Is there anything spelt out in the new code that's coming out about the battery centers and about data centers? Because we seem to be a county, because I think of land mass, that's continuing to be looked at for projects like this. And again, if we're going to be able to make decisions on how to protect the citizens and recommend to the Board of Supervisors with accurate information, that we need more conversations like this to be informed, and we also need something in our code. And I would also add to that, I understand that, so when a project wants to come to our county, they submit an application, and I get it, NDAs and stuff like that. I completely get that. The employer I work for, I had to sign one of those to go to work there. Can't even talk about what I do at work. And I get all that stuff. But, when it gets to the point that it's being presented to the Planning Commission, we should have been known at that point. And like with this incident and with the data center, this body knew nothing about it. In fact, I'll take it one step further. The volunteer agencies that this project was going to be in, my first due agency and her fire department's first due agency, we knew the week before. We knew the week before it was going to be brought to the Planning Commission about a 70 Connex box, whatever you call them, battery storage facility. And it was kind of a slap in the face to us, because we're sitting there going, well, how are you going to get water supply? Who's going to protect this? And then the citizens were calling us saying, hey, I don't want this, y'all fighting. We're like, we don't even know what it is. And so that's something as a county level we've got to fix.
Yeah, I hear you, and that was totally a misstep on East Point's, behalf.
Well, I don't totally blame y'all for that. I think as a county whole, we've got to fix that and how our processes. This commission here should be involved somewhere in those talks when a project of that magnitude is coming, especially with just what it is, right? If somebody wants to come here and put a nuclear reactor plant, a nuke plant in I would hope we would know a week before they were going to vote on it at the Planning Commission level. It's no difference, when these type projects come along. Again, I get it. We can't be privy to everything, and we shouldn't be. But there comes a time and place where that's our job. That's what we're here supposed to do, is to make recommendations. How can we recommend if we're not informed? So I'm going to encourage the Board of Supervisors to talk to their administrators and try to fix that. And we'll be glad to give feedback, I think, from this body. But that's something I know put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths with how that project was brought up, and we knew nothing of it. And so, again, back to my question, Director Key, is there anything that you're aware of? And if not, can we get Emily at our next meeting? I mean, these are conversations we need to be having about what is the code going to say, how's it going to be policed, and what's it going to entail?
I can have Emily here to answer your questions.
Okay. All right.
So,
Just because I've done a lot of planning and ordinances, I think a great idea or a suggestion for the Board of Supervisors would be, like, in the application process, because usually you have to do a pre-application process, I would, mandate that you have to, meet with all the first responders, the emergency services, all the departments before your pre-application is approved, before you can actually put your application before the Board of Supervisors or Planning Commission. I mean, it's totally a reasonable request.
Right.
And that's what I would suggest, because then you're in there from the beginning.
I totally agree. Because if I have to have resources to protect your investment, it's an investment. You want to protect it. If we're going to protect that investment, then I've got to invest in equipment and PPE and training. And I don't know if y'all bought a fire truck lately, but it takes about 4 years to get one in $1 million. So it's not something that happens overnight. And I didn't mean that disrespectful. I'm just saying, that's the kind of stuff we're up against. So we've got to do a kind of a completely revamp, I believe, of how we look at this. I'm glad we have growth quote unquote growth. People look at different things as growth and some they don't agree with. I'm glad we have all these projects coming to our doorstep. We just need to make sure we're making the right decisions to protect the community as these decisions get made, and that starts with informing.
So, Chief, why it's important to do that, and East Point's like real good with this, is because when they design the facilities, they're gonna design it to code, but you might have certain things that you want. So like one of the things that I see the fire services ask for is a first responder station. So basically something outside the facility, so I don't even have to go near it. Give me a staging area for my apparatus. So certain things that would make our game day a little better, a little safer for us. So definitely meeting with them up front, so you're working on the project collaboratively, or at least giving your input to say, if you want to do this, at the very least, I want to see these 5 things, 100%.
So, worst case scenario,
Yes.
at one of those facilities, like you showed on your screen, worst case scenario, distancing from one container to the next. Worst case scenario, 100 feet?
No.
Well, I mean, I know you're gonna tell me 8 feet because we're looking at land mass. I'm talking about worst case scenario for my responders and the neighbors.
I'm just going to speak to, so Dominion Power has bought a couple of projects that we've developed, and so has REC Rappahannock. And Dominion Power has one of the more strict standards.
Yeah.
They require it to be 25 feet
Yes.
apart.
Okay.
And that is the Dominion Power regulation. And to be honest, most manufacturers only need about 3 feet apart. And Sungrow, which is one of the manufacturers, just did one of the largest burn tests in the world, actually, and we can give you that link. And they did a test where they put the containers 15 centimeters apart, which I can't do that in inches real quick, but it's very close. And they raised the temperature up to the temperature that metal melts to see if it would propagate to the next container, and it did. So, like, we're trying to tell you that they are constantly updating this equipment, and we're trying to, plan ahead, because like we said, it takes forever to get these interconnection processes done, and we can't do that. We can't do anything until that's done, so we try to plan ahead and spec out a battery type now, but then if the model gets better, we're going to the next model. We're going to the better model.
So the other side of the coin, 25 feet is
So,
what I'm hearing
let
is
me-
a safe factor for other manufacturers. That being said, burn time, i.e., worst case scenario, how long am I going to have to flow 1,000, 2,000 gallons a minute? Worst case scenario, cooling this thing down. And I know you're saying intermittent. I want worst case scenario, I'm flowing it from beginning to end.
Could be a couple of hours, kind of like a house fire. Are we fully involved? Are we partially involved?
Fully involved, worst case scenario, 1 hour, 24 hours, 3 days.
So fully involved is actually the best case scenario, because then it's going to burn quicker. It's like that slow propagation.
How long will it take it to get to fully involved?
You're probably, once you get like that, you may be here 4 hours. Are you gonna see sustained see, what you're gonna have is fire, but not at a volume where you're gonna have to continue to flow water, because now it's not aggressive anymore. Now I've got like a lazy fire. So I think that if you did the math, I mean, to me, it depends on the size of the
4
container.
hours, 240,000 gallons a minute.
So I'm not that quick with the math, but absolutely. So that's if you want to do that. This is why if you spread it apart,
Right.
I don't have to worry about it.
And I guess where I'm going is the dangers can be mitigated if we set the right policies in place.
100%, and that's what I was saying, Chief, if we just sit down and we come up with something that works for everybody, to give you an idea of where the numbers came from, FM Global, you're familiar with them, right, the insurance folks? FM Global said, we think these things should be 20 feet. Dominion and their insurance company they're actually fire engineers over there. The guy who runs their shop over there, Justin Perry, he actually looked at this and said, you know what, I want to be a little more conservative. And that's what they did, so they went with 25.
That's what I'm looking for, is conservative.
Yeah, and that's exactly what that gentleman is very conservative. So his philosophy was, you can give me the windiest day, and it's still not going to matter.
Okay.
So I have a question kind of related as far as for fire rating. The containers side by side, you know, we look at things hour, 2 hour fire rating or what have you. Inside of these containers, when you have one cell fail, as that is failing, what's the failure rate of the ones adjacent to that? In that container, do we have some type of fire separation or something to prevent?
So what they have is, the modules kind of look like computer towers, probably look like that speaker in front of you, and the cells are stacked up in there. There are spaces between the cells. So when they do the UL testing, a pass on the test would be cell number 2's burning, and it doesn't propagate between 1, 3, and across the aisle. So that's what they're looking at. So we see a lot of those tests that are positive, and then we've seen things go on fire. So I take his approach. I don't plan for the best, I plan for the worst. So at the end of the day, my assumptions are all based on, I have a fully involved container. So are they looking at what you're talking about? Yeah. They're actually, they continue to come up with new stuff every day, trying to use like gel based on, I think it's called aerogel, to put a spacing between the cells so that you wouldn't have that heat and propagation. They're looking at direct injection of like Novec into these modules. So they're trying a host of different things.
I mean, our goal is 0 incidents.
Of course.
Yeah.
The problem that we have in the industry, Chief, is you hear about the failures, you don't hear about the good ones. We never do. Like where it was contained to a module, this thing tripped out, it did its job. Those don't get reported because they don't make 911.
And the Dominican facility has been operating like 2-3 years now.
Well, I'm trying to think of that fire
It's in
department.
Chesterfield.
That's it, Chesterfield. Yeah.
And 0 incidences.
It's actually some of those in our, it's actually already some of these facilities in our area.
Yeah, so I just, I'm just trying to give you some examples of what other counties and.
Y'all got some in the city, don't you, Dean?
It's just some in the area.
You say y'all been testing pretty much since 2017, is that what I hear? Is that
So-
where your test started, your aggressive testing started 2017 until now?
They started to assemble folks for the NFPA committee, and then what happens is in 2019, after that event in Arizona, that's where the idea was put forward to say, well, why don't we set these things on fire before game day to see what it looks like rather than find out on game day. So UL came up with a concept that would look at different types of burns. Now, we're kind of back to round 2 with UL, and we're all sitting on committees to look at these burn tests a lot more aggressive, because what we're seeing is, well, in the test, didn't seem like it failed, but in real life, we did see a failure here. So if I tested, and I don't see a failure in real life, so we're trying to get it so that it matches. So if your product is safe here in the testing lab, well, it should be safe here. So right now, we used to rely on trying to set one module on fire and then have it propagate, and if it didn't, we called it a pass. Now we're looking at, we're gonna force the entire container into fire and see what that does.
So basically, aggressive testing been about 5 years now.
Yes.
And most of us on this panel right here are firefighters. And when some of us have fought fire together.
I missed that last
I
one.
said, some of us even fought fire together. And I just on this panel, we fought some of the same fires together. But during that, to me, 5 years is not long enough to figure out, oops, I haven't seen it do that yet. That's what that was, because, we're still seeing that with some structure fires, but we have enough basic knowledge to say, all right, this happened, so this is why this happened. But with this right here, we still, you know, and I understand what you're saying, it's still the oops factor in that, and we have never seen it do this before.
Right.
And that's what I guess most of us are kind of concerned about, that we have to report to our citizens and why we didn't figure that in.
That's the reason I say if we can look at setbacks and segregating these things to where
Yeah.
they're isolated a little more. And the other side of the coin, if it's carbon monoxide, dioxide, they're going up. The temperature reduces, so they dissipate. The wind is in our favor. If it's a heavier wind, it's going to dissipate a lot faster. That being said, the other gases is what I would be concerned with, and what I'm understanding, they're contained and they're burning off inside.
So when, can you hold that? I'd like to answer the chief's
Go
question.
ahead.
So two things. First, you were concerned about, well, I didn't know, can I put people at risk, my members at risk? We wouldn't have them inside the facility. Basically, what we're looking to do is, at a minimum, asset protection, that's it. So you're not up close and personal. The second thing, as a whole, the industry has gotten safer. Here's why, and see if this makes sense to you. What do you think your biggest risk would be? What I would think is, and I'm always worried from 2019, is explosion. The 2019 model, that blast wave went 75 feet. That was a walking container that would allow the accumulation of a lot more flammable gas. The new containers, you can't get a dollar bill inside those things. They're so tight. So there is no room for anything in there. There's no walking space. So what that means is, that's it. There's no space in there. That means very little flammable gas can accumulate. So the stuff that I didn't anticipate, I think we kind of engineered out. The biggest concern that I have is explosion. And I think our risk is reduced by changing the design. And that's across the board. Chief, I'm sorry. So we were talking about hydrogen. Okay. So what we do is, one of the things, and we actually did it for Chesterfield, we do plume modeling. So what we'll do is we'll do a burn and then start to measure and look at it, 10 feet, 20 feet, 100 feet. I guess the takeaway, the short answer is, it never makes it past the fence line, not at that site.
But did I understand in your presentation that y'all put monitors in that has an ignition source to be able to ignite it and burn it off before it leaves there?
Yes, some models do.
Right, not in the testing we did. I'm talking about what they're proposing in the future. The only one that currently does that is Tesla.
So it's not a standard procedure at this time?
Not yet, no. No, that's where they're looking, they like the idea. I think it's pretty simple and it makes sense. If my risk is, some type of fire explosion, I want it early. Set it up, get it over with, and call it a day.
Is there any of these facilities, Chris, in the county currently?
Not that I'm aware of.
Answer that, actually. It's not, Danville is in Pennsylvania County. There's, I want to say 20 megawatt currently operating Danville Electric, and they actually just approved another addition onto that of 20 megawatts. So they will be adding to that 20 megawatt facility.
Gotcha. All right, any other questions? We really appreciate y'all coming tonight and educating us, and
Thank you so much. Love the
Absolutely.
conversation. You guys have awesome food. Thanks for having me down.
thank you.
Yeah, with the cookies.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And if you guys have any other questions, I think y'all know where to reach us, Chris.
So what my company does is we do fire modeling, we do explosion modeling, plume modeling, a number of different things. We set a lot of these things on fire. If you've got questions, we're happy to share whatever we can with you. And most of my team are all active and retired members, so we're here to advocate for you. So whatever we could do to make things a little better. I'll leave a couple of my cards. Thank you. Sorry to take so long. Cheers.
No. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I'm from New York. I'm stealing your clicker.
All right, that brings us down to Item 14, other matters from the commissioners. We'll start off here, Chief Fowler.
Ben, I failed to bring it up earlier. The Fire and Rescue Association, Director Key's been present. We have been looking at working on a strategic plan to actually improve services, actually improve the capabilities of our services, and improve what we do to retain and recruit our people. And they've started working on a strategic plan. Last night, they adopted 5 key points that they want to include in a strategic plan. First priority being recruitment and retention. Second one being standard operating procedures across the county. Third being training. Fourth being equipment. And the fifth being special operations. That being said, we can expand this as we go. But the other thing we'd like to do is we're going to look at recruitment and retention. One being, that's pretty critical right now. I think all of us agree. It's hard to find people that want to do this job. And secondly, we need to put something back that entices them to come and want to do this job. Granted, we all tell them thank you, and we all see them out in the public and we thank them. But I think you don't go very far anymore. And that being said, we're looking at some avenues to do that. So that's the first priority, and we've decided they're going to take each one of these items and work on it at each of the Fire and Rescue Association meetings, starting first meeting in January, which is the next meeting we'll have, and work through these. So I hope we'll have some reporting to come back to you all and give you some information and ideas to improve the system as a whole.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And I do like the way I was at the meeting last night, one of the larger meetings we've had in a long time, and if I can just encourage the agencies to come and participate, now's the time. All right, we're going to move down to Commissioner Casper.
Okay, Tuesday night I had the privilege of being at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and I am so glad that I did, because I didn't know they were going to recognize H.F. Haymore. I've known H.F. for a long time, because I've been doing this for a long time, but not near as long as H.F. When they said H.F.'s been volunteering for 60 years, to put that in perspective, he started in 1964. That's the year I was born, and I'm getting old, so. I mean, I just want from our commission here, I want to congratulate HF for 60 years, just to expand upon what the Board of Supervisors did, because 60 years, just think about that for a minute. And he's still doing it. If you listen every day, you hear HF out running calls.
I heard him on the radio about 2-3 hours ago. He drove an ambulance.
And so that, to me, that's just, it's amazing. I don't know what else to say. So I just want to congratulate HF from this commission and from my perspective. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Atkins.
Reiterate the thing from Commissioner Casper. HF, I listen to the radio every day, and I mean, he's burning the roads up. Thank you to the dispatchers, everybody who's sitting on this board, and our supervisors. Thank you. Just keep us in your thoughts. With the recruitment thing, Dean brought up, you sit there and think, well, you get a thank you, and you're supposed to go on down the road, and you get a $45 county decal that you don't get anymore, and that's where we're at, so we have to do something to get some of these younger people involved, even your older people. It's stuff for everybody to do in volunteer organizations every day, so everybody be safe.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair, I'll come back to you. Director Key.
Yeah, just as the meeting started, we had a notification of a water issue on the 58 west side. It has not been resolved yet. Public Works crews are out investigating, trying to locate and repair whatever the leak is or the damage is.
Just, any departments out there on the west end, just so you know, your water supply may be limited this evening. So we'll send notices out as soon as we can get everything repaired. Other
Thank
than
you,
that,
sir. Appreciate it. Ms. Caldwell, you got anything?
No, we've had 3 new dispatchers training, so thank you for your patience, and they've done very well. 3 of them graduated DCJS Academy last month, so
That's awesome.
they're rolling right along, but it takes a while.
Well, they seem to be doing good. Everything on the radio sounds good, so we appreciate them. All right, Mr. Rowland.
What Mr. Casper was saying was quite astounding about HF. I've had the privilege of working with him both as a clerk and in Mount Hermon. And it was a real enjoyable experience, and I think he's a true volunteerism is really coming out with him. And I'm real proud that the board did recognize him.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. Mr. Stallings.
Appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and I'm always amazed at the knowledge that you guys have with everything that's going on in this county. The drug box is a huge, huge deal, and I appreciate the people coming out tonight for the presentation. And like you said, maybe some of that would have went a long ways if we'd had it ahead of time. And I've kept up with it somewhat, and it's pretty amazing, the technology and stuff that's out now that we don't even know about, and it's going to get worse, as far as having the technology ourselves and the knowledge ourselves to fight these types of fires. I'm still concerned about these solar panel farms, and we talked about that several meetings ago, and I'm not sure where we're at on that, but do we even know how to fight those types of fires yet, and what's going on with it? So I appreciate everybody again, and like I said, it makes me feel kind of dumb when I sit and listen to you guys and do all these abbreviations. I'm trying to figure out what you're talking about sometimes, but I get it, and I'm more than happy to help any way I can. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shields.
Alan, thank you for recognizing HF. He's a family member and a friend that goes back a long way. But I've listened over the last year at men and women throughout the county that have put many, many, many years in the volunteer departments, and it's always heartwarming when I hear of those people that put in so much time. And for any of y'all that have members in your organization that is going on or they are retiring, please bring it before the commission, because I'll always want to say thank you to them. To the men and women that serve each and every day, and always we start with our dispatchers and go all the way through. Much appreciated. To the Board of Supervisors, you have some tough challenges ahead of you, because each and every day it requires more and more and more money to run this county. It's no secret what fire and rescue equipment costs. So there are some big challenges ahead of us in the days ahead. So to each member that serves here, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very good point, sir. All right, Mr. Lovelace.
I really can't say anything. I think everybody's already said it, so I don't have anything. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Cassell.
As you know, we got a new industry finally coming in Berry Hill, Mega Park, Microforce. Everybody was kind of under the misconception that it was going to be a battery plant, but all they're making is the battery separators, which go between the plates. They're going to be on 212 acres, 2,000 employees, which I'm wondering where they're going to get them.
And housing.
The Harville Parkway is now open. We've already had 3 accidents on it. The solar farm over at Berry Hill 2 is 700 acres. It's going to be 267,704 panels. They're building a substation over there now. The rumor is that they're going to have some kind of battery backup on it. So I'm kind of curious on that myself. And talking with the people, they notify me every day that they're burning out there. They're burning in pits with air curtains and everything. thing that kind of sticks in my craw, I have talked to economic development in the past about notifying the chiefs of the departments when something is coming into their area. I've got emails from economic development saying that it's been discussed and chiefs will be notified of things coming. I was not notified of anything on this. My station was notified the day before when state police came to check my station in case the governor needed me using to change clothes. So that's kind of where y'all were talking earlier. Something needs to be addressed on.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Coleman Mayhew.
I'd just like to say, thank you to everybody that does volunteer. It is greatly appreciated, and I know the numbers seem to be dwindling or what have you. And I can't imagine how many that we've already had that have been achieved, 50, 60 years or what have you. And that dedication is something that we truly need right now, just as important as ever. I'd encourage you to reach out to the committee that's going to look at their retention and recruitment and offer them suggestions from your members, your younger members that, may be able to draw more in. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Vice Chair.
Like I said, thank you, Commissioner Casper. Like I said, HF, congratulations and thank you. And like Commissioner Shields said, I talk to him sometime about twice a week, just in passing, but he's been at it a long time. I said, and like he said, we got several charter members that's getting ready to retire, and our own department's been there like 45 years. So they coming up on retirement here pretty quick. They've already said they won't come. They was stepping back some. And one of them, like I said, they were two charter members. One of them is Junior Amos. One of them is my dad, Kermit Sr. So they kind of stepping back a little bit. But also, I should thank you to all the volunteers that come out, public safety, our dispatchers. They all do a tremendous job. Appreciation to the Board of Supervisors for supporting us all these over our different projects and trying to help us out where you can. And thank you to all of you that come out to these meetings all the time. So it's it's a good support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Chief Fowler.
Ben, I want to recognize a couple that we don't usually recognize, and I thought about it sitting here because I aggravated one of them last night at 9:30, but Daniel Kendrick and Jason Maracas that keep our radio system working, those folks are really valuable, and they take care of us in a big way, and I don't think they ever get the appreciation that we should give them. I called one of them last night because we had an issue at 9:30, and he handled it flawlessly, and I'd just like to say thank you to them.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Daniel's also been helping with our drug boxes and getting our equipment set up, so we really appreciate y'all. So that brings it down to me to finish the night. Really good meeting tonight. Thank you to all the commissioners that came out. I think our county is on that. I think the planning commission the other night, the gentleman that leads that commission, I think he said it better than I've heard put in a long time. Our county is at that kind of middle of the road of change, and everybody wants change, but then nobody wants change when it's time to change. So our county's at that middle of the road, and we got some decisions to make, some turns to make, and we hope we choose the right one. As far as this body goes, the ones watching at home and in the audience, our job solely is to try to make sure we're putting the best product out there to protect the citizens and keep the citizens safe from a fire and rescue standpoint. That being said, you have some dedicated volunteers. You've got public safety. The board, I've said this year, and I'm going to continue to say it until they prove me otherwise, and I hope they don't. I think our Board of Supervisors right now has our backs, the fire and rescue's backs, more than I've seen in a long, long time. A lot of them, you can pick up your phone and call, and they'll listen. They may not be able to fix your problem, but they'll at least talk to you about it, try to lead you in the right direction. I know they're trying financially to support us, but everybody needs more money. That being said, we're at another crossroads with our county code being updated. County code was updated last in, 1994, I believe it was, it was in the 90s. So you see how much stuff has changed. They pretty much said they had to throw away the old and start a whole new. Part of that, with all these new technologies, data centers and lithium-ion battery storage facilities, none of that was thought about then. So all that needs a place somewhere in there, because these projects are going to keep coming to our doorstep, and we need to know how to safely protect our folks. That also being said, to reiterate what Tim said, and I said it earlier, and I don't want to beat this dead horse, but I'm trying to get a point across. There's going to have to come somewhere where the process changes, where they incorporate the chief, the public safety director, the chief of the area that facility is going to be housed in, and somehow of this commission. Because if we're going to be charged with making recommendations to the Board of Supervisors to keep the citizens safe, how are we supposed to do that if we don't know about a project until after it's been talked about and voted on? So, that's something that I hope Chris can get Emily here next month, and I hope we can talk to her about that. And I hope our Board of Supervisors are listening. I see Mr. Whittle back there tonight. He comes to every one of these meetings, and I appreciate him being here. And I hope he'll take some of this back that he's heard. To change gears a little bit, I came to the Board of Supervisors meeting Tuesday night, and I got out of the car, and I was walking in with Alan, another boy from our station, and I had on basketball shorts, a short sleeve, old ragged shirt, and Crocs. And I told Alan, I said, I don't look like much tonight, but I'm not getting up to speak tonight because I spoke at the last one, so everything will be good. And what happened as soon as we got here, they come over and said, hey, we're honoring HF tonight. When it gets to him, y'all get up and come up front and take a picture. So I had to go up front and hide, and I'm a pretty big boy if y'all didn't know, so hiding's hard. But I got behind Mr. Tucker and Mr. Dalton and a couple of them and hid. But it was funny because I see Frank sitting there, Frank Fox. I'm glad he's here, big supporter of us. A few months ago, somebody else was being honored, and they asked us to come up and stand for the picture. And Alan had done the same thing. We was here for the meeting, and he won't plan on speaking. He had on basketball shorts and Crocs and a T-shirt. And Frank got him after and said, I'm glad you dressed up for the picture, dressed up for the occasion. So, but no, HF, if you're listening or even if you're not, congratulations. I told him the other night, wow, what an achievement. That's something I hope I can see. I can't imagine what he's seen, what he's done, and he talked about the change and how things have changed so much. And it has. It's changed, and it's going to continue to change. That's one thing we don't stop. So, appreciate HF and everything he's done for our county. We've honored some good people this year. Jesse Yates, Mike Neal, and HF Haymore, them three alone is about 160 years of service to Pennsylvania County, just those three men. So, I'm going to end it with, like I always do, thank you to our dispatchers, our public safety, our volunteer departments. Thank you to our Board of Supervisors. Thank you to the public. The public matters. That's who we're here to serve, and no one else. And so we're thankful for all, and I'm thankful for these commissioners. Y'all have been here a long time tonight, so I'll shut it down now. Meeting's adjourned.